Maria Santos had been cleaning the offices at Meridian Tech for 4 years, arriving each evening at 6 p.m. sharp with her cart full of supplies and a thermos of coffee that would last her through the night shift. She preferred working when the building was nearly empty. No executives in expensive suits stepping around her as if she were furniture. No uncomfortable moments when someone would ask her to move so they could use the copier. In the quiet hours after corporate America went home, Maria could work in peace, listening to her carefully curated playlist of international podcasts while she restored order to the chaos left behind by the day shift. What nobody at Meridian Tech knew was that Maria Esperanza Santos spoke 9 languages fluently and held 2 master's degrees. It wasn't information she volunteered. When you're pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies through marble lobbies, people don't typically inquire about your educational background. Most days, they barely acknowledged her existence at all. Maria had arrived in Boston from Columbia 12 years ago with dreams as big as her student loan debt. She held a master's in international business from Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá and had completed a second master's in applied linguistics at a university in Madrid. She'd worked for 3 years as a translator for the United Nations office in her home country before political instability and personal circumstances forced her to start over in America. But starting over in a new country, even with impressive credentials, proved more complicated than she'd anticipated. Her Colombian degrees needed expensive evaluations and certifications. Her UN experience, while prestigious, didn't translate directly to American corporate culture. Her English, though fluent, carried an accent that some employers seemed to find problematic. Meanwhile, rent needed to be paid, groceries needed to be bought, and her younger sister Carmen, who had followed Maria to Boston and was studying nursing, needed support. Cleaning jobs paid immediately, required no credential verification, and offered the flexibility Maria needed to take care of her family while figuring out her next steps. Those next steps had somehow stretched into 4 years. Every evening, as Maria methodically worked through each floor of the Meridian Tech building, she listened to news broadcasts in Spanish, French, and Portuguese. She'd practice her German with language exchange apps, help her neighbor's Italian grandmother translate medical documents, and video chat with her former UN colleagues who were now scattered across Europe, South America, and Asia. Switching between languages was as natural to her as breathing. Mandarin with her friend Wei, who worked at the Chinese consulate. Arabic with the family who ran the corner market near her apartment. Russian with her elderly neighbor who played chess in the park. The Meridian Tech building housed several international companies, and Maria often overheard fragments of conversations in various languages during her evening rounds. She'd learned to tune it out professionally, though she couldn't help but notice when translation errors in important documents got left on desks, or when she overheard frustrated phone calls where language barriers were clearly causing business problems. None of it was her business. She was there to clean, not to consult on international communications. Until the night, everything changed. It was nearly 9 p.m. on a cold Tuesday in February when Maria heard animated voices coming from the executive conference room on the 15th floor. This was unusual. Most people cleared out by 6:30, which was why her shift started then. As she approached with her vacuum cleaner, she realized the voices were speaking in rapid Portuguese. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass walls, she could see David Kim, Meridian Tech's CEO, sitting across from 4 visitors in crisp business attire. The body language in the room looked tense, with crossed arms and the kind of polite smiles that didn't reach anyone's eyes. Maria understood every word they were saying. The visitors were executives from Brazil Tech, one of South America's largest software development companies. They were diplomatically but firmly backing out of what sounded like a major partnership deal. They were expressing concerns about fundamental misunderstandings and cultural gaps that couldn't be bridged. David was responding in Portuguese that was technically correct, but culturally tone-deaf. He was using formal textbook language that made him sound stiff and corporate, completely missing the warm, relationship-building communication style that Brazilian business culture required. Worse, he was unknowingly using phrases that, while literally accurate, carried implications he clearly didn't intend. When David said their partnership would be muito efficient, the Brazilians heard coldly transactional. When he emphasized Meridian Tech's professional standards, they heard we think you're unprofessional. Every attempt he made to reassure them was actually reinforcing their concerns about cultural incompatibility. Maria paused her cleaning, recognizing the frustration on both sides. The Brazilian executives were clearly disappointed. She could hear it in their voices as they spoke among themselves. They liked David personally, respected Meridian Tech's reputation, and had genuinely wanted this partnership to work. But they were convinced that the cultural divide was too significant to overcome. "É uma pena," one of them was saying quietly to another. "He seems like a good man, but they clearly don't understand how we do business. This partnership would be disaster waiting to happen." The lead executive was gathering his papers, preparing to politely end the meeting. In Portuguese, he said to his colleagues, "We'll make our excuses and leave. Maybe recommend they hire a cultural consultant before they try to expand into Latin America." Maria watched David's face as he sensed the meeting slipping away, clearly not understanding the side conversations happening in rapid Portuguese. She'd seen that expression before, the frustration of knowing you're losing something important but not understanding why. She thought about walking away. This wasn't her job. She was the night janitor. These kinds of high-stakes business meetings were as far outside her responsibilities as neurosurgery. But she also thought about David Kim, one of the few executives who had ever made eye contact with her, who always said good evening when their paths crossed, who had personally approved her request for schedule flexibility when Carmen was in the hospital. She thought about the 23 employees whose layoffs she'd overheard being discussed last month, and how a major international partnership might change those conversations. And she thought about her own experience with cultural misunderstandings, with being dismissed because people couldn't see past surface assumptions. Maria made a decision that would change everything. She knocked softly on the conference room door. The conversation stopped immediately. David looked up, surprised. "Maria, is everything all right?" "Mr. Kim," she said carefully, her slight accent more noticeable than usual due to nerves. "I apologize for interrupting. I couldn't help but overhear the conversation. I speak Portuguese fluently. Would you like me to help clarify anything?" The room fell completely silent. The Brazilian executives looked startled, then curious. David's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You speak Portuguese?" David asked. "Yes, sir. And Spanish, French, German, Italian, Arabic, Mandarin, and Russian, plus English, of course." One of the Brazilian executives leaned forward, speaking in Portuguese. "You understand what we've been discussing?" Maria responded in fluent, culturally appropriate Portuguese. "Yes, and I believe there have been significant misunderstandings that could be resolved." The executive smiled for the first time that evening. "Your Portuguese is excellent. Where did you learn it?" "I studied linguistics and worked as a translator before coming to the United States," Maria replied, still in Portuguese. "I've also spent time in Brazil on business." David looked between Maria and the Brazilians, clearly understanding that something had shifted in the room's dynamic. "Maria, could you help us finish this conversation?" What happened next transformed not just the meeting, but everyone's understanding of the quiet woman who cleaned their offices every night. Maria didn't just translate, she became a cultural bridge. She explained to David that Brazilian business culture prioritizes relationship building and warmth over efficiency and directness. She helped him understand that his emphasis on professional standards had been interpreted as an insult to Brazilian professionalism when he'd meant to emphasize quality control. She facilitated a conversation about family, something David had avoided as unprofessional, but which the Brazilians saw as essential to trust building. When Maria mentioned that David had personally ensured she could adjust her schedule to care for her sister, it demonstrated the kind of family-centered values that resonated with Brazilian culture. Most importantly, Maria helped both sides understand that their core values were actually aligned. They both prioritized innovation, quality, and long-term relationships. They'd just been expressing those values in culturally different ways. She caught nuances that formal translation would have missed. When the Brazilian lead mentioned concerns about commitment to the market, Maria recognized this as a diplomatic way of asking whether Meridian Tech saw Brazil as a revenue source to be exploited or a market to be served. She helped David address those concerns by sharing his company's philosophy of sustainable, mutually beneficial partnerships. The conversation, which had been heading toward a polite but final rejection, transformed into an animated discussion about shared goals, cultural integration strategies, and long-term vision. 3 hours later, they had not just saved the original deal, but expanded it to include a cultural exchange program between their companies. As the Brazilian executives prepared to leave, the senior partner approached Maria and spoke to her in Portuguese. "Your understanding of both cultures is remarkable. This is exactly the kind of perspective companies need when expanding internationally." Another executive added, "Have you considered consulting work? Many companies struggle with exactly these issues." Maria smiled politely. "I appreciate that, but I have my current responsibilities here." After the Brazilians left, David remained in the conference room where Maria was quietly collecting the coffee cups and folders scattered across the table. "Maria," David said, "we need to talk." Maria tensed, wondering if she'd overstepped professional boundaries. "What other languages do you speak? You mentioned 9 total?" "Besides English and Spanish, which are native for me, I speak Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Arabic, Mandarin, and Russian at a professional level." David stared at her. "Professional level? I worked as a translator and cultural liaison for international organizations before coming to the United States." "What kind of organizations?" Maria hesitated, then decided honesty was the best policy. "The United Nations office in Colombia, primarily. I also did freelance work for various multinational corporations expanding into Latin American markets." David was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. "Why didn't you ever mention this background?" Maria paused in her cleaning, considering how to answer diplomatically. "With respect, Mr. Kim, when would that have come up? During the job interview, where I was asked if I could work nights and weekends? During our brief hallway interactions? And honestly, what difference would it have made?" David realized she was absolutely right. How many times had he walked past Maria in the corridors, nodded politely, but never engaged in actual conversation? How many assumptions had he made about her based solely on her job title? "You have advanced degrees," he said. It wasn't a question. 2 master's degrees, international business and applied linguistics. "And you're working as a night janitor." Maria's voice was steady but firm. "I'm working as a professional cleaner who takes pride in her work and supports her family. There's no shame in honest labor, Mr. Kim." David felt appropriately chastened. "You're absolutely right. I didn't mean to imply otherwise. I'm trying to understand how someone with your qualifications and experience ended up in a position where your skills aren't being utilized." Maria considered how much to share. "Immigration is complicated. Credential recognition is expensive and time-consuming. My sister needed immediate support when she came here to study nursing. Cleaning jobs provided immediate income and schedule flexibility. Sometimes life requires practical choices over ideal ones. But you've been here 4 years. And in those 4 years, I've learned American business culture, improved my English, helped my sister finish nursing school, and gained residency status. I haven't been standing still, Mr. Kim. I've been strategically patient." David was beginning to understand that he'd dramatically underestimated the woman standing in front of him. "Maria, would you be interested in joining our international business development team? After tonight, it's clear we desperately need someone with your cultural competency and language skills." Maria was genuinely surprised. "I don't have American corporate experience in that field." "You have something more valuable," David said. "You have knowledge, skills, and the wisdom to see what the rest of us missed. We can teach you our internal processes. You can teach us how to actually succeed in international markets." Maria was quiet for a moment. "I would need to maintain some evening hours. Carmen is taking her nursing board exams next month, and I promised to help her study." "We can work around that," David said immediately. "Family obligations are important, and I'd want to ensure that whoever replaces me in this position is treated fairly and paid appropriately." David nodded. Agreed. Anything else? One question, Maria said. Why now? I've been here 4 years. What changed? David thought carefully. Honestly, tonight showed me how much I don't see, how many assumptions I make, how much talent might be walking past me every day while I'm too caught up in organizational charts to notice actual human potential. The next morning, David called an all-hands company meeting. The entire staff gathered in the main conference room, buzzing with curiosity. Some people noticed Maria standing quietly near the back, looking distinctly uncomfortable in her regular clothes instead of her cleaning uniform. Yesterday evening, David began, our company was on the verge of losing a major international partnership that would have meant significant revenue and potential expansion into South American markets. That partnership was not just saved, but substantially improved, thanks to someone many of you see regularly but may not really know. He gestured toward Maria. Maria Santos, who has been working our evening cleaning shift for 4 years, speaks 9 languages fluently and holds 2 master's degrees in international business and applied linguistics. Last night, she didn't just translate a conversation. She helped us navigate cultural complexities that none of the rest have understood, ultimately transforming a failed negotiation into a successful partnership. The room erupted in surprised murmurs and turned heads. Maria looked like she wanted to disappear through the floor. This experience got me thinking about how we see each other in this company, David continued. How many talented people do we interact with every day without really knowing who they are? How many assumptions do we make based on job titles rather than getting to know the actual human beings who make our company function? He paused, letting that sink in. Maria, would you be willing to share a bit about your background? Maria reluctantly stepped forward, her voice initially quiet, but growing stronger as she spoke. I came to the United States 12 years ago with big dreams and significant challenges. I've worked various jobs while supporting my family and navigating immigration processes. Every job taught me something valuable: customer service, time management, attention to detail, cultural adaptation. She looked around the room. I've been listening to your international conference calls for 4 years, hearing the challenges you face with global expansion, watching opportunities get missed due to cultural misunderstandings. I never spoke up because I didn't think it was my place. Last night I realized that artificial boundaries only exist if we accept them. The applause was spontaneous and heartfelt. David then announced that Maria would be joining the International Business Development Team. But that was just the beginning. He outlined a comprehensive company initiative to truly understand every employee's background, skills, and aspirations, from the cafeteria staff to senior management. We're going to create advancement pathways that recognize talent wherever it exists in our organization, he said. We're going to stop making assumptions about people's capabilities based on their current job titles. And we're going to make sure that when someone has something valuable to contribute, they feel empowered to speak up. The initiative started immediately. Over the following weeks, David and the HR team conducted optional interviews with every employee who was interested. The discoveries were remarkable. The security guard, James, had a degree in computer science and had been quietly identifying security vulnerabilities in their systems for years. The cafeteria manager, Lisa, had run her own catering business and had innovative ideas for employee wellness programs. The mailroom supervisor, Ahmed, spoke 4 languages and had connections throughout the Middle Eastern business community. Maria's transition to the business development team was rapid but thoughtful. She spent mornings learning Meridian Tech's internal processes and afternoons applying her cultural expertise to existing international relationships. Within her first month, she had identified miscommunications that were hampering partnerships in 3 different countries. But her most significant contribution was the cultural competency training program she developed. Every employee who worked on international projects went through workshops that Maria designed, learning not just basic language skills, but cultural context that could make or break business relationships. The program was so successful that other companies began requesting similar training. Within 6 months, Maria had launched Meridian Tech's first consulting division offering cultural competency services to other businesses expanding internationally. Carmen passed her nursing boards and got a position at Boston Medical Center. She often told people that watching her sister's career transformation had taught her never to let other people's limited vision define her own possibilities. The story of Maria's promotion spread throughout Boston's business community. But what made it remarkable wasn't just the individual success story. It was the culture change it sparked throughout Meridian Tech. The company became known not just for innovative technology, but as a place that truly valued human potential. Employee turnover dropped to nearly zero. Innovation increased dramatically as people felt empowered to contribute ideas beyond their job descriptions. They began attracting top talent from competitors who wanted to work somewhere that saw the whole person, not just the position description. International partnerships flourished as Meridian Tech gained a reputation for cultural sensitivity and authentic relationship building. The Brazilian deal Maria had helped save became a model for expansion throughout Latin America. Similar successes followed in European and Asian markets. A year after that pivotal night, Meridian Tech won a national award for workplace innovation and cultural competency. At the ceremony, Maria was asked to speak about her experience. "A year ago, I was invisible," she said, looking out at an audience of business leaders and HR professionals. "Not because I chose to be, but because invisibility was the role I'd been assigned based on other people's assumptions about who cleaning staff could be." She paused, her voice growing stronger. But invisibility and incompetence are not the same thing. There are talented, educated, capable people in every level of every organization who are waiting for someone to see their potential instead of just their current position. The question isn't whether that potential exists, it's whether we're brave enough to look for it, and whether we're wise enough to create environments where people feel safe revealing it. The applause was long and heartfelt, but Maria's favorite moment came afterward when a young woman approached her, a hotel housekeeper who had been in the audience. "I have a degree in environmental science," the woman said quietly. "I've never told my supervisors because I didn't think it mattered." "It matters," Maria said firmly. "You matter. Don't wait for someone else to see your value. Find ways to demonstrate it." That evening, at the company celebration dinner, David found Maria on the outdoor terrace, taking a quiet moment away from the festivities. "Any regrets?" he asked. Maria smiled, looking out over the city lights. "About speaking up that night? Never. About waiting 4 years to do it? Every day." "What held you back?" Maria considered the question. "Fear, mainly. Fear of overstepping. Fear of being seen as presumptuous. Fear of being rejected. But also, I think I had internalized some of the limitations other people placed on me. I had convinced myself that being the night janitor was my place, my level." "What changed your mind that night?" "Watching you struggle with something I could actually help with made me realize that artificial barriers only hurt everyone involved. You needed cultural expertise. I had it. My job title didn't change that reality." David nodded thoughtfully. "We all learned something important that night. I learned not to see job titles instead of people." "What did you learn?" "That being underestimated isn't the same as being underqualified," Maria said. "And that sometimes the biggest risk isn't speaking up when you have something valuable to offer. It's staying silent and letting opportunities pass by." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the celebration through the windows. Employees from every department and level were mixing freely, sharing stories, breaking down barriers that had existed for years. "There's something else," Maria said. "Something I've been thinking about a lot lately." "What's that?" "How many other companies have their own Maria Santos? How many talented people are cleaning offices, serving food, providing security, doing essential work while their other skills go completely unrecognized?" David considered this. "Probably more than we'd like to think. I've been wondering if we could do something about that. Not just here, but industry-wide." "What did you have in mind?" Maria turned to face him, her eyes bright with possibility. "What if we created a program to help other companies discover hidden talent in their organizations? A consulting service that specializes in recognizing potential that's been overlooked." David smiled. "That sounds like exactly the kind of initiative that could change a lot of lives. It would mean expanding beyond just cultural competency training. "Are you proposing to become an entrepreneur, Maria?" She laughed. "I'm proposing to solve a problem I understand intimately. There are brilliant people everywhere who just need someone to see them clearly." 6 months later, Maria launched Hidden Potential Consulting as a subsidiary of Meridian Tech. The company specialized in helping organizations identify and develop talent that had been overlooked due to traditional hiring biases, limited advancement pathways, or simple lack of awareness. Her first client was a hospital system, where she discovered that several custodial staff members had medical training from other countries, but were working cleaning jobs while navigating credential recognition processes. Her second was a retail chain where she found that many floor associates had business degrees and innovative ideas for improving customer experience. The success stories multiplied. Companies that implemented Maria's assessment program saw improvements in retention, innovation, and employee satisfaction. More importantly, individuals who had felt stuck in positions that didn't utilize their full potential found pathways to careers that matched their capabilities and aspirations. Carmen, now working as a pediatric nurse, often brought her colleagues to hear Maria speak at business conferences. "My sister taught me that your current situation doesn't define your future possibilities," she would tell them. "But you have to be willing to speak up when the right moment comes." 2 years after that pivotal night in the conference room, Maria was featured on the cover of Harvard Business Review in an article titled, "The Hidden Talent Revolution: How Smart Companies Find Potential Everywhere." But her proudest moment came during a company-wide meeting at Meridian Tech, when David announced that they had achieved their highest ever employee satisfaction scores and their most successful year of international expansion. This transformation started with one person having the courage to speak up when she saw an opportunity to contribute, he told the assembled staff. "Maria Santos showed us that talent exists at every level of our organization. We just had to be willing to see it." As the meeting ended and people dispersed, Maria remained in her seat for a moment, thinking about the woman she had been 4 years ago. Skilled but silent, capable but invisible, waiting for someone else to recognize her worth. That woman had been cleaning these same conference rooms, listening to these same voices, understanding problems she wasn't supposed to solve. The transformation hadn't been about changing who she was. It had been about finding the courage to show who she had always been. The janitor who spoke 9 languages had become the consultant who helped others find their voices. But more importantly, she had helped create a world where those voices were not just heard, but valued. And in boardrooms across the country, talented people who had been overlooked, underestimated, and underutilized were beginning to realize that their moment to speak up might be closer than they thought.